All right, here with Jonathan Kleck again. Last time we spoke, we got your testimony of going to This Is It in Houston, and your testimony in regards of being apprehended by the police, questioned, chased, all these different things, and you finally got your first marching orders, go to This Is It. You went there, got the message, hallelujah, praise Jesus, and you came back home. So where do we go from there? What happens next?
So I'm gonna try and put kind of a little bit of a time frame on it. So that's 2002. This Is It.
Sure, all that happened.
It was right after Lou came back in town, went to This Is It, got my marching orders. So that's when I knew, so here we go. So that's when I knew, like in my heart of hearts, the whole thing that had happened to me, the alley, everything was the Lord calling me. There's no doubt about it. Once I went to This Is It, yeah. I knew that I had been called by the Lord. I knew I'd been called in the alley, and when Michael told me, learn to trust that little voice, that was actually when I was at this Travis Park, the second encounter with Michael, when he told me that. But anyway, I knew it then, but then it was solidified when I listened, start driving towards New York, and I did what he said, put on all black, told Lou to put on all black, and then we ended up at This Is It. So after that was 2002, shortly after I was released, the night I was arrested.
Sure.
So then just to fast forward, after that, I married Lou. Without getting into all the wild other details, I was filing for custody of my other children that I had with Marina, and which I won, I prevailed, which was in itself an absolute miracle. And Lou and I were together, and we had a child also, but all the drama and everything that was going on, and Lou's inability to actually have a conversion. She was reading the Bible, she was doing all those things you think a person that's a Christian would do, but you could see she wasn't, it wasn't working.
So all these manifestations that you were seeing, and she was also there a part of, it just didn't have the same effect on her.
Well, she just couldn't, she wasn't converted, and so she was trying to, I could tell it was really heartbreaking. She was trying to be part of the whole thing, okay, yeah, let's do this, and then you could see she didn't really, in her heart, believe it. But she saw so many miracles, which brings up a really good point, because one of the first miracles I really had to step out on was my son Trinity. His eye, he had a clogged tear duct, and the doctor said that it was so bad that it was going to damage his optic nerve, and he would lose his ability to control one of his eyes. And they said that they had to stick a wire down in it and fix it, and they scheduled surgery for it. And the Lord told me absolutely not, stop the surgery. Oh. So yeah,
that's pretty wild.
Yep. So my mom and my dad's a doctor at that point, and my mom, they were livid. They were freaking out. So they were freaking out, and I was saying, no, the Lord told me don't do the surgery, it won't go well. And so I told Lou. So Lou had already seen so much supernatural stuff. She was around me all the time, and you see the miracles roll out all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And they're not explainable other than they're miracles.
Right.
Yeah. And so Lou was seeing that, but when I canceled, I said, I'm canceling the surgery. And she told me, and I'll never forget the way she told me, she said, okay, here's the deal. When our child has one eye that looks one direction, because he can't control the nerve, and one eye that looks the other direction, I think they call it like a Google eye or something, or a floating eye. She said, you're going to explain to him when he's getting harassed by little kids at school. You can explain to him.
Sure, so the consequences of not getting the surgery would result in that Google eye one drifting around.
Yeah, like, it's all on you, Johnny.
Sure.
And what I told her was, I said, look, Lou, you've seen the miracles. You've witnessed them. I trust God more than I trust a doctor. And if I know that I heard from the Lord to cancel the surgery, then I'm going to do what he says. And I recently did a little video on it, about the process. And I won't go through the whole process because it's on a video, but I canceled the surgery. And then within, I think it was like a week and a half after doing what the Lord had told me to do, which you could maybe put a link to that video.
Sure.
When the Lord literally led me through a series of steps. And when I did what he said, when I followed his steps, there was a little, looked like sleep, or it looked like a maggot in the corner of Trinity's eye, right here. And I reached and I pulled it, and it just kept coming, and I held it with one hand and I pulled it with the other hand, and it just kept going, and it popped out, and it was about that long, and it was just hardened, wet mucus that had solidified, but it was still real slimy. And that's what was stuck in his tear duct, and I pulled the whole thing out, and his eye was, wow. And then at that point, I was just like, okay, I am absolutely hearing loud and clear, because everything he told me to do, I did, to clear that tear duct. And he gave me very specific instructions in very unique ways.
Wow.
And so then after that, just getting past all, just to bring you guys up to the future without getting into all my personal life. I had filed for custody of my other children. It was a long battle, but I won custody. It was impossible. During that time, Lou was having all kinds of problems with faith and not anorexia, but bulimia. And so she left town with Trinity in 2005. And then she elected not to come back. But then Trinity was up in Minnesota. And I said, well, what do you plan on, the whole thing with our child? And the Lord told me I needed to get custody of the child, which I already knew because of some things that had happened. So anyway, I filed for custody of Trinity, and I was in court up there, and I didn't have enough money for an attorney in Minnesota. But the way it turned out is I had taken Trinity from Minnesota back to Texas and crossed state lines, and I refused to return him because of what he had told me had happened to him. He was being choked by her boyfriend.
Wow.
And so I absolutely refused to give him back. And so they filed a writ of habeas corpus, and then they came after me with both guns. They wanted to put me in prison for sure. And at that time, I didn't have money for an attorney because I was so busy fighting for the custody of my children in San Antonio. And so money was just not available for fighting in Minnesota. But the Lord told me, I want you to do it on your own. So here's another just insane miracle. The Lord told me, you need to do it on your own. I had asked my parents to help me financially, and they had the resources, and they just said no. I was just like, do you all understand I could go to jail for a really long time? And here I am fighting I'm winning custody of my other 3 children, and now I'm trying to get custody of Trinity, and my parents are saying no, they're not going to let me, have any financial help whatsoever, and I couldn't get a lawyer. And the Lord told me, no, you need to do it all yourself. And so I was like, that doesn't seem right at all. But the Lord knew absolutely what he was doing, because had I had a lawyer, I don't think I would have prevailed. And the reason is I was pro se, so everything I sent to the judge, he had to read every single thing I sent him. And so if I would have had an attorney, they would have whittled down the stack of papers to almost nothing. And so I went up there several times for my court case, and like I said, my freedom was at stake big time. And her attorney, George Wetzel, if anyone wants to go look it up, you can go look it all up. It was in Brainerd, Minnesota. And anyway, George Wetzel, that's a family law firm that's generational. And they are a generational family law, and they carry a really big stick in the legal community. And so I was up against one of the #1 attorneys in Brainerd, yeah. And so anyway, even her attorney, George Wetzel, was saying, you need an attorney, Jonathan. I've got to do what my client says. They want you in jail. And I was like, I'm not going to do it. And this is what I got to do. So anyway, so I went there twice. On the second time to go to trial, the judge, Judge Tonight, he's like, okay, are we ready to go to trial? And I said, I'm not ready yet. And so Judge tonight said, look, I'll give you one more extension, and then that's it. We're going to trial no matter what. So the next time you show up here, you're going to trial, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so I went home and, of course, pleaded my case to the Lord. Like, please. And he showed me exactly what to do, and I filed a huge filing with the courts up there. And I had taken Lou's affidavit, and everywhere she had said something that wasn't true, I went and documented it, bringing documentation and proving and highlighting every aspect that was not true in her affidavit. And that actually became what's called aggravated perjury. And so she was looking at aggravated perjury as a possible outcome if she was to lose. And so once I filed that, Judge tonight sent me a letter back, and I'll quote roughly what she said. She said, Mr. Kleck, I have received your voluminous document. That was the beginning of the paperwork from Judge tonight. He said, I received your voluminous document because it was about this thing. I just stacked everything on I could. I sent it to him. But he believed everything I said, because he said, I've received your voluminous document, although it is not properly before the court, because the legalese wasn't correct. He said it's not properly before the court. And he said, but according to the lees versus lees, or some case law, and he cited some case law. He said, if you follow these procedures and you do it within 30 days of the receipt of this letter from Judge tonight, you may open a new case for custody of your son, Trinity Kleck. And I did not understand at all what it meant. I'm like, what does this even mean? So I went to my attorney here in San Antonio, which was Jeffrey Bernstein. And I said, Jeffrey, I don't understand what this means. And he read and he goes, whatever you did, this judge totally believes you, because he outlined the case law and he showed you exactly what to do, because he believes you. And if he believes you and she committed aggravated perjury, then she's in huge trouble. And so after that, I rewrote the whole thing up, and I got it properly before the court. And after I did that filing, within a couple of days, I got a call from Lou, and she's like, if you give me your word you'll never try and keep our son from me, I'll throw in the towel and I'll just give you custody. And I said, you have my word. I never even made her pay child support. So even though that wasn't part of the deal, I just never did. And so anyway, so Trinity came back. So I ended up with custody of all my children. And I was a single dad with 4 children. And then I was doing a whole lot of very creative things to keep the whole thing moving forward, with 4 children and work and 3 different schools in different places. And during that time, the Lord told me, I want you on the radio.
Yeah.
And
Now, may I ask, how far along after your 2002 testimony, how long does this court proceeding play out, your custody battles, and where are we when the Lord tells you that he wants you on air?
Yeah, so it had to be, 2006, maybe.
So it's been a few years now.
Yeah, so Trinity left in 2005. Around 2006, around there, 2006 or 7, is when I ended up with everybody at one place. All my children were with me. I had full custody. I had joint, it's called joint managing conservatorship. I was the primary caregiver for all my children, so I had custody.
Sure.
They could still see their moms and all that. I didn't have a problem with any of that. Anyway, but so around 2008 maybe, or around there, I can't really remember the year, but I had moved from the residence I was at, and I had moved into a rental place over in a school district that was a better school district for the children, and much safer. And so once I moved over there, I was doing a lot of construction, and at that point when I was moved into Alamo Heights, that's when the Lord said, okay, now I want you on the radio.
Wow, so nothing was published publicly as far as the information that the Lord had given you yet?
Well, not exactly. I mean, I was really just receiving, reading the Bible, learning to communicate with the Lord, talking all the time to the Lord.
Yeah, it almost sounds like practice with Him. Just listen to that voice and let's get you listening to it.
It was a whole lot of you and me.
Yeah.
It was a lot in which I actually, those were some of the best times of my life, really, to get to see that I was communicating with Him and that He was hearing me and that I was hearing Him. When He told me what to do to get Trinity's eye cleared, I was just like, that's insane.
Yeah.
And so then I knew I could trust the Lord more than I could trust a doctor to fix his eye. Now, for the record, a lot of people get weird when it comes to medical. Doctors are there for a reason, and a doctor is a great thing. Okay, because a lot of people think, oh, just the Lord will take care of everything. No. The Lord will take care of what He needs to for His purposes a lot of times. But a lot of people negate the fact that a doctor is a real thing and they serve a real purpose to help you get well. And I get frustrated sometimes because a lot of people, oh, the Lord will do it and I don't need to. The Lord can handle anything. However, doctors are there for a reason.
Yep.
Okay, but on the case with my son, he told me specifically, do not do the surgery. It could turn out bad. And I found out actually that during those surgeries, sometimes they do go bad, and one of the results is the optic nerve gets damaged, and then the kid ends up with a Google eye anyway. Or they clear it, and it closes back up, and then sometimes they have to go in and add a stent, but it can require more surgeries. Mm-hmm. And what I did, what the Lord led me to do, it just cleared it, and his eye's been fine ever since.
Yeah, it seems like you were compelled to take some really big steps of faith. I mean, not getting surgery for your kid, defending yourself in court versus, I forget the names, but those big lawyers.
Yeah, the Wetzels, George Wetzel is his name, and they're in Brainerd, Minnesota.
Yeah, that sounds about above anybody's pay grade, frankly. But
yeah, it was terrifying. It was, because I knew they were going to try and lock me up for, it could be like interstate kidnapping.
Yeah.
Because if you take a child, I went up to Minnesota. I hadn't seen Trinity. He left in basically August of 2005, and I hadn't seen him. Mm-hmm. And then I went up and I went up and picked him up and brought him back to San Antonio. She let me bring him back, and then she claimed that I had taken him without any agreement, which is not true. She actually wrote it on a piece of paper.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so it looked like I was the big bad wolf, but he had been choked several times by her boyfriend, who was in the process of getting divorced, and he was. I got all the information on him as well, and he had a whole lot of stuff. A whole lot of baggage anyway. So. Yeah,
so now not only are your parents turned against you, but your two, what should I call them, ex-girlfriends?
I never married Marina, and I told Marina that I would never, ever marry her because everything that came out of her mouth was a lie, or potentially a lie, and I could never, ever believe anything she said because she was willing to lie about birth control knowingly in order to purposely get pregnant to stop me from going to sky surf.
Yeah, that's the thing about a lie. It does quite a bit of damage.
Lying, just for the record, lying is the single most destructive thing I know. A lie is more destructive than a nuclear bomb. It's more destructive than anything I've ever encountered. And it can destroy any relationship. It can destroy the entire world. A lie. A lie is the most horrible, horrific thing there is. And if you are lying to someone about anything, you need to tell them the truth and come clean and never lie again. That was the watermark the night I got saved. The Lord showed me, turn the word nylon upside down, and it was no lying, N-O-L-Y-N. And I heard the Lord say, for you to do what you're going to do for me, you cannot speak 1% lie. You have to tell the truth all the time, under whatever circumstances.
Yeah.
And that's, you can also, if people are asking you questions that you don't want to answer, you can say, you know what, I don't want to answer your question because I don't need to.
Very fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for taking those sporadic questions. So I'm just curious, it's fascinating. So now you said the Lord,
radio.
Yeah, he wants you on air, like live?
So when he told me he wanted me on the radio, I was terrified.
Yeah.
Now, the weird thing was I had been on the radio before. I was on a Liberty Broadcasting Network, and there was a radio program that had me on regularly. I was like a regular speaker all the time on a radio program.
Gotcha.
And I found out, it turns out that a lot of people were sending donations to this guy. His name was CJ. And they were sending them to me, and it was just a gift. And they were gifting this radio station that was using just me and one other person. And they were just keeping all the money, never said a word.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't know this till much later, but it was called Liberty Broadcasting Network. But anyway, so I'd done the radio, I'd been on radio before, I'd been on radio regularly before in the past, but I did it for free, just for the labor of love, trying to help people get set free. But then when the Lord told me, I want you on the radio specifically, one of the guys I used to skydive with, who was a videographer, his name was Trey. He had gotten into the oil industry, and at that time it was booming. Very few regulations were going on, and he called me up and he wanted to hire me really bad. He said, "Look, JK, I'll start you at $7,000 a month. I can move you up really quick. I can move you to $10,000 a month within like 3 months, no problem.
Wow.
I'll give you per diem. I'll give you travel." So with just the initial package, it was, you're looking at 7,000 to 8,000, 9,000 a month starting,
Yeah.
and then going up to about 15,000 a month. And he had offered me that job, but the problem was I had to leave San Antonio fairly regularly to go check on rigs in Louisiana. So I was going to be on the road a bit, and that would require me having like a live-in type nanny situation because I was a single dad with 4 kids. And so I needed someone that could live in and keep an eye on the children.
Right.
So then I decided to have a chat with the children. And so here's a super awesome testimony. So can I just tell that one now?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, so there I was just really trying everything I could do to make it happen for 4 children and myself. And the Lord had put me in that situation, so I knew he would take care of it. So when he told me he wanted me on the radio, I was just like, well, what does that mean exactly? I actually went to a radio station here in San Antonio, and I thought, well, maybe he wants me just to go in and give him an application, and here's my information, and I went over there and I dropped it off. Never heard back, and I heard the Lord say, just trust me, I want you on the radio. Take the step of faith to do it yourself. And I still wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know what that means. So to do it, what does that mean? Do it myself. And so anyway, I was driving my children to Waco. 2 of my children, I was driving to go see their mom, and she lived in Dallas. So I was going to meet her halfway. And so we're driving in the car, and I thought this would be a great time to kind of break the news to them. Like, hey guys, I got a job. It pays really well, and I'm not going to be doing all the construction anymore. But we're going to need a live-in nanny. So I was kind of softly breaking it to them that there may be someone else living with us, like a nanny, but it wouldn't be a problem paying her or whoever it would be because, the salary increase. And so anyway, so as I was saying that, we were just south of Austin, Texas, heading north on I-35. And we were heading north. And I told him, I've been offered this job, so we'll probably have to get a nanny. And so my daughter just instantly chimes in. She goes, well, I get to pick the nanny, which was perfect, par for the course.
May I ask your children's age at this time?
Yes, without just blurting out everyone's name, because I don't want to. But yeah, they were about 8th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade, 6th grade, maybe 4th grade and 3rd grade, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, it gives us a good ballpark.
Yeah, around there. They were maybe I missed one of those by a grade. Anyway, but yeah, they were all pretty young. Oldest was 8th grade. So anyway, as I was driving, and she may even have been in so. Anyway, so when she blurted out, "I get to pick," I was like, we're gonna do an interview process. We're gonna meet several people, blah blah blah, and we'll all decide together, blah blah blah. And then right then, my daughter, while I'm kind of laying out, my daughter just points right in front of my face while I'm driving. She goes, "Look, in Amy's ice cream."
Oh, wow.
And I'm driving, and I went, "What?" Like, she doesn't even like ice cream.
Oh.
I mean, she doesn't. She's not, there's those people that don't like ice cream.
Sure.
She's one of them. And I was just like, weird. I was like, and I said, "You don't even like ice cream." And then the two of the boys in the back and just said, "Oh yeah, okay, can we have ice cream?" And I was like, I looked at my daughter and I was like, "Good job, good job." And so I said, "Guys, we can't pull over and get ice cream. We got to be in Waco. I can't be late because it's not going to go well if we're late." And blah blah blah. So anyway, and then out of nowhere, I just said, "You know what? Let's pull over and just get some ice cream. That's great."
Yeah.
I just for some reason, I just totally changed.
Cool dad kicked in.
Yeah, cool dad kicked in.
Yeah.
And I was like, "You know what? That's cool." So we're driving. And I'll never forget, I was like, "Man, there's no exit. There's no exit. There's no..." Because I'm looking at the distance driving north to have to get off and go back and go south. And I don't want to go too far back because of the road trip that we're on. So anyway, so we're driving and I'm like, "Oh, wow, there's no exit. And there's no exit. And there's no exit." And then I said, "You know what, guys? We'll just get off further up, a ways.
Yeah.
And then we'll find a Dairy Queen or something, or we'll find someplace with ice cream." And they were okay. The boys were like, "Oh, okay," which made it really easy to get out of it. So anyway, then all of a sudden there was Slaughter Lane. And the reason I'm mentioning these, you can go on Google Earth and check the story out that I'm telling you by just going on and looking at the landmarks I'm going to draw. So anyway, so I got up on Slaughter Lane. I went over the highway so I could go southbound. And there was I think a Kentucky Fried Chicken there and a Chinese buffet thing or something. And my daughter was like, "Dad, can I get something like regular food? My stomach's upset." It was like girl time of the month. She had just begun that, and I was like, "Yeah." So I was like, I gotta get my daughter for sure some food because she had started her period, whatever, and she was using it as a way.
I need to get something.
Some real food right now.
Yeah.
Man, it's serious. I was like, okay. So anyway, I'm like, okay. And so I kind of made a joke about, I think it was either Kentucky Fried Chicken or Church's. And then as I went over the highway and turned left on the access road, there was a Johnny Carino's Italian food. And Johnny Carino's is I think maybe a nationwide sit down, eat Italian food dinner type place. And it was afternoon. It was midday-ish. Anyway, and so she goes, "Dad, can I have Johnny Carino's?" And I was like, "No, man, it'll take
Right, you're on a road trip now.
We're talking drive-through. We gotta, And she goes, "Oh, please," and I just all of a sudden I'm like, "Yeah, okay," and I just pull into Johnny Carino's, and I'm like, "Okay," so I just run in the door and I run up to there's a bartender there and I go, "Hey, do you guys have any food that's super fast?" And the girl goes, "Yeah, angel hair pasta." I'll never forget it because it was just weird. It was like, okay. And she goes, "Yeah, it only takes a couple of minutes." I'm like, "Okay, I'll take that. Let me pay you right now." I paid her. She was out in 5 minutes with angel hair pasta. I go, "Say, here you go, give it to my daughter." And then I'm backing out and I'm going around the building. And that means I got to take a left and then I got to take a right to get on the access road again. And as I look to my right, there is an Amy's ice cream.
A new Amy's ice cream.
Well, I had no idea it was an Amy's ice cream. And Amy's ice cream are few and far between. I only know of the one in San Antonio, and I only knew that there was the one, that was by the theater on 35. So anyway, so when I'm pulling up to try and get on that access road, and I looked directly at an Amy's ice cream, I went, "Oh my God, there's an Amy's ice cream right there." And right that moment, I heard the Lord say, Jonathan, go to this Amy's Ice Cream. Go to this Amy's Ice Cream. I have a message for you. And so I'm sitting there and I got the children and I'm like, and I look at the kids and I go, this is so crazy, guys. But I hear the Lord saying, go to this Amy's Ice Cream, that he's got a message for me. Go to this Amy's Ice Cream. And my children started going, ooh, doo, 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 doo.
Kind of making fun of you a little bit.
They were making fun of me for sure. And I go, no. I said, the Lord said, go to this Amy's Ice Cream. I have a message for you. And so I was like, I'm going here. So I pull over and we get out and we're walking up to the front door. And in the front window, there's a big neon sign and it says, on air.
Oh, wow.
Like a radio station. Well, the last thing out of my mouth, you know, when I said, hey, we're going to have to get a nanny because the Lord wants me on the radio. And then my daughter goes, look at Amy's Ice Cream. I'm like, what? You don't even like ice cream. Yeah. What the heck? Next thing you know, I'm in another Amy's Ice Cream that says on air in huge neon letters. And I was thinking, you know, if the Lord's trying to tell you something and he puts it in giant neon letters and you miss it, you're not doing very well.
So you saw the sign.
Yeah, I was like, ah. And I was like, oh my God. And so anyway, I made two of my boys stand there and I took some pictures of them. I'll just give you the pics. And
yeah, great.
I was going to show them to you on my old phone. But anyway, yeah, they stood right there and I took a couple pictures. Now here's the crazy part. So we go in and they go up and they give their order. And then I look at the person that took the order and I said, hey, let me ask you a question. This is really weird because, I mean, Amy's Ice Creams are few and far between. Is there another Amy's Ice Cream down the highway? I thought we saw one. And she goes, oh yeah, we have another one down by the theater. And I went, oh, really? And I go, and she goes, yeah, we rented that space to eliminate competition within the demographics. Mm-hmm. So we leased the one by the theater and we have one there and we have this one. And I was like, oh, so there is one further down. I haven't lost my mind. And she goes, oh yeah. And I said, well, let me ask you this question. Does it have a neon sign in the window? Does it say on air like this one? And she goes, oh, no. That one just says open.
Oh, wow. So the on-air sign was only at the one you went to?
Only at the one I went to. And I was like...
The one that you ended up there accidentally.
Yes, because I went to Johnny Carino's.
Right.
Had I not gone to Johnny Carino's and gone inside and then gone behind the building to get out of the parking lot and look to the right so I could make a left, I never would have seen it. And I looked literally directly at it. And I was like, okay, that's insane. And then when there was an on-air sign in the window, I had to, no matter what, take the step of faith and do what the Lord said. He's like, I want you on the radio. I need you on the radio. So I came back to San Antonio and I had a friend that, you know, he was like a YouTube guy. And I said, hey, do you know how to do a radio, and he had started doing his own thing on what's called Blog Talk. And so I started a Blog Talk radio program, and that was it, man. It took off. I mean, I did, I think, 2 hours a night, 3 nights a week, and it was like the 2 hours went by so fast. It was just absolutely insane. We had so many miracles on the radio. Can I just tell the
please.
The first miracle? So the Lord told me you have to name. So Clay, Daly, had come down to help me with the first like DVD I was going to do, and he learned all this stuff on the fly. Anyway, Clay had come down, and the Lord told me you have to name your program. This is it. 4, 3, 2, 1. Before the fire. And I was like, this is it, 4, 3, 2, 1. Before the fire. You have to name your program that.
Wow. Just like the restaurant.
I went to a place called This Is It.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's cool. And then 4, 3, 2, 1 is a countdown. And then before the fire, because the night I got saved, I knew there was a fire coming to destroy everything. And it's just like I knew, it was instilled in me. So anyway, I was like, oh, okay. And so that's what I did. And the very first night that I did the very first show, and this is all findable, it's all part in the Kleck files. I would take callers. So I had a call doc where you could call in and ask questions, and people could call in and talk. I'd put people on regularly. I'd let all kinds of people call in and ask questions. So anyway, so the very first show, the very first night, my call doc exploded, and I was like, because all these numbers were just going, one section of my screen was just going.
And this is the first time?
The very first show.
So you're getting all these new calls.
And I don't even know how to really do the whole thing yet. I don't even know how to handle all the equipment yet. I'm like, and my call doc is just going, bing, 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 just rolling. And then all of a sudden I hear the Lord say, someone is going to get saved right now. Someone's calling in right now. Tell the audience. And I said, oh, guys, this is crazy that I hear the Lord saying right now, someone's calling, someone's going to get saved right now. I hear the Lord saying someone's calling in to get saved, to give their life to Christ right now. And, so anyone could have heard that and said, oh, I'm going to be that person or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, which phone do I pick up? Right. And they're just rolling. And so there was this one phone number that looked really different. Mm-hmm. And that's the one. So I'm like, you want me to get that one? Pick the one that looks really different. It was coming from overseas. Well, I think the program was like at 8 o'clock at night. And apparently it was coming from England. And I picked it up, and the lady's name was, I'm like, hello, okay, hey, welcome to This Is It. And I said, who am I speaking with? And she said, she was British, and she said, this is Yvonne Orr. And I was like, oh, well, and she was just like, oh, I just heard it was that I wanted to give my life to Jesus. And it's just, I can't, she was just like pouring it out. So I prayed with her, and she, she just laid it out there, and she's like, yeah, I'm accepting Jesus right now. And the Lord told me to look up the meaning of her last name. Mm-hmm. And the meaning of her last name is fire, or like the fire within you, and before the fire. So wow. I was just like, that's insane. Yeah, so the very first caller, her name was Yvonne Orr, and she got saved.
So just as you had previously heard, someone's going to call in and give their life to Christ, and that's immediately what happened, the first call?
Yes. The very first call was someone giving their life to Christ. And those calls, after doing it, I don't remember how long. I think I did it for several years. Those calls, those were kind of few and far between, where someone would just call in and say, I want to accept Christ right now. I mean, it wasn't like we had altar calls or anything. Sure. I mean, I would encourage people, if anyone, wanted to profess Christ, then you should do it. But the very first caller, and her name was Yvonne Orr, fire. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, that's the Lord. So then I knew I was doing what the Lord wanted me to do. And so, so it was very successful, and we had a really good time. It was very supernatural all the time.
Yeah. Can I ask you, what did a typical question sound like, or a typical call answer?
Yeah, a lot of times people would call up and just have questions, about biblical questions, and sure. I would answer them to the best of my ability. Or sometimes people just wanted to call and say, hey, this is what happened to me, and kind of just connect. A lot of people wanted to be on the radio to connect with others because they felt isolated, especially the people that were able to receive the information that the Lord's given me. We had a parallel platform called Justin TV. So while I was running the radio program, you could open another window, and on that window, you could access all my show notes. Like, I document everything. I document the information the Lord gives me, the images He gives me, the understanding of a scripture that He gives me. I document that stuff. It's a whole lot of stuff. And so I document all the time what the Lord's showing me, what he's revealing to me, the revelations that he gives me, and I put them in folders. So during the radio, it was always live. It was always a live program, and there was Justin TV. So you could go and I could say, hey, you know what? I could say, we're going to go to this folder, and it would be on a screen, and I could show you a picture. And if you had Justin TV hooked up, you could go look at that and see it as well.
Yeah.
So it was interactive, visual as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were just the radio part, but a lot of them are radio with Justin TV, and it was live as well, obviously.
Yeah.
And so it became a platform that people could see and understand what the Lord was showing me, and it got pretty popular.
Yeah, wow. Well, what an exciting setup just to see what comes after, you know. But, is there anything else you'd like to add for this session?
It's just been a wild ride, right? I guess this is like part number 3.
Yeah.
So guys, I just loaded up a video right now of the U.S. currency notes. And, you know, maybe if we have, I don't know if we have time for the next interview before everything happens, maybe, but you never know if we have tomorrow. But here's the thing, the U.S. currency notes and the agenda that's on the U.S. currency is one of the first things the Lord showed me. Remember that, to see the Twin Towers. Someone showed that to me, but then he let me discern the Pentagon was on the back of the bill with the Twin Towers. Then he let me see that the old 20 has the federal building bombing on it, and then Hoover Dam, and then he let me prophesy, you know, in 2007 or 2, right before Obama became president. And on that prophetic utterance, the words that came out of my mouth, they match new images on new U.S. currency notes. And then in the past couple of days, Zach saw this. I ended up with an old $100 bill, and I folded. I did the folding pattern, and I looked at it. I'm like, oh wow, I can tell it's water coming through between the buildings. It looks like water meandering, and I was like, wow, yeah, it looks like water just meandering, coming out of the ocean, coming in between the buildings in New York. And then all of a sudden, I went, oh my God, it's the head of like an alien, like Akhenaten, and it shows that head just kind of like it's arriving, like it's coming in with the water is the best way to describe it. So I've got it on my desktop, I've got it in a program, and I've started putting pen to it, and it's a head of an alien. And isn't that weird? Like in the past couple of days, I've been doing that, right?
Yeah.
And this is when all the UAP, you know, and now today, they're saying, oh, well, Trump and Israel's been in touch with the Galactic Federation. It's like, okay, I wonder what the odds are, like 1 in 0. There's no odds. It's like, hey, I want you on the radio, and I end up at Amy's Ice Cream, and it says on air in the window. There's no way. You can't be having a conversation with your kids, and within a couple minutes, you're standing in front of a neon sign in a window that says on air. And by the way, that on air sign that was in Amy's Ice Cream, it was identical to my screen on Blog Talk Radio.
Oh, really? Wow.
I was like, it's like here's the artwork for the, do us a neon sign based on this.
Yeah.
I was like, holy moly. Yeah, it was the same font. The on air was the same font.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks, guys,
Love you
for
guys.
joining us. Love you guys.
All right.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks.